Hey, what's up? Hello, I hope you all are doing well. It's been quite a long time since you've seen my face, unless you're watching old videos, in which case maybe it's not. Either way, there's a lot of catching up to do. I could go on about the unrelenting busyness in my life, but that would bore you, quite honestly, and there's a lot to get through today. So without further ado, here are the books that I read all the way back in Q2, which was April, May, and June of this year. I started off with Murder and Masquerade by Mary Winters, and I was looking forward to this book for a very long time. This is the second book in the Lady of Letters series by Mary Winters, who is an author who writes under a number of different pen names, and it follows Murder in Postscript. So these books are about this woman who is a lady of high society. Her husband has died and she's now a widow, and she is kind of an agony aunt for a newspaper or a ladies' magazine or something like that, and nobody knows that it's her. And there's a man who's a friend of the family, and they have like this very, very long, drawn-out romance brewing, and you can just tell, and it was brewing in the first book and nothing really came of it, except they kind of noticed that it was happening, and it kind of, it peaks itself a little bit more in this book, but no one really wants to like get out there and address it quite so firmly. I really loved the first book because I thought it was a nice balance between a cozy mystery story and this romance that they hadn't gotten to yet, and was very much looking forward to this book. I remember feeling slightly let down by this one. I don't recall having the same level of wanting to get to the next page. I wasn't being pulled along by the plot quite so much as I was in the first book, but I think that might also be due to the fact that I sort of expected it to be within the same formula as the first book. It's my understanding that there will be a third in this series, and I don't know if there will be more, but if you are a fan of a cozy mystery, if you are a fan of a Regency era romance, this is a great way to dip your toe into like the splicing of those two different things. So it's got one foot in either of those genre camps rather than standing firmly in one or the other. I followed that up with an audiobook that was generally in the same vein. It was The Gentleman's Gambit by Evie Dunmore, which is book 4 in the League of Extraordinary Women series, starting with Bringing Down the Duke and moving on from there. And this is Katrina's story. I have a soft spot for Katrina in all of these books because she is Scottish, and I really appreciate that her family still has and uses their seat up in the Highlands in their ancestral home. I suppose the book is supposed to be framed as like, oh, the two of them are in a chess match with each other, plotting their moves because neither of them is altogether interested in outrightly pursuing the other. But they also do actually play chess in this because it is stressed how incredibly smart and witty and bright and just insightful that Katrina is. And this man, Mr. Hoory, is coming to the UK specifically to take back pieces that have wound up in a museum that had been pilfered and stolen from his country, and he wanted to take them back. So it was doing some reclamation of important historical objects, and that interplay happens because she gets him the access that he needs because she has such good standing at this museum, and then over time secrets come out and they have to figure out how to work that into their relationship. The thing that I wasn't sure about with this book is that Katrina is a very autistic coded character. Very, very much is made about how she is easily overstimulated, and that has to do with temperature or sound or lights, and sometimes if there are too many people in a place and she just gets caught up in her thoughts and she forgets to eat and, you know, can't come out of her own mind and participate in conversation, and she sees things more quickly than other people. You know, the list goes on. And one of the main romantic considerations in the story is that he has to be someone for her who will allow her to be that way without trying to change her. And, you know, she goes back and forth in her own mind about, you know, if I stay with this person, if I proceed with this person, will this be made space for, or will I have to transform myself into what, you know, a society wife is expected to be, because she is titled and she is meant to make the type of match that is befitting of her station in this time period. And none of that accommodates for all of these things going on in her mind, because she is known as, you know, the quiet one, the shy one, the smart one, all of that stuff. And I understand that in this time period, it's likely that that would have never been addressed at all. It would just have been brushed away as, oh, she's a little odd or something like that. And so is the author trying to stick very firmly in the time period by not addressing it? Or is the author, who is writing from a contemporary lens, is it worth it to somehow make very clear to her reader that she understands she's coding this character this way? Or are we meant to infer that for ourselves? And I think that's a question that I have generally for these type of pieces that are set in a time in history where that type of neurodivergence was either brushed off as something different, strange, odd, or, you know, slightly useful and a little quirky. That's fine, that's how it was dealt with, but reading this in a contemporary view, how are we supposed to understand that the author understands all of the complexity and the careful thoughtfulness and inclusivity that needs to happen when we surround a character like that? All of this to say, it did detract from my enjoyment of the plot. There's always a miscommunication in these types of stories, and this miscommunication was very realistic, but also incredibly challenging. And I'm so glad I was listening to it, because if I wasn't listening to it, I definitely would have probably thrown the book a couple times with how difficult I found both of these characters, in that they would not communicate with each other at the level that I needed them to for this to be able to be resolved efficiently. And if you're sensing a pattern here, you would be right, because I followed this book with The Highlander's Holiday Wife by Vanessa Kelly. Now, stay with me. I have been reading the Clan Kendrick series by Vanessa Kelly for quite some time. This is really coming to the tail end. This is the penultimate book in the series, right? So this is the second youngest brother, Braden. He is a doctor in Edinburgh. I was delighted that Edinburgh finally made it into the story instead of having everything be set in Glasgow. So here I am thinking this is gonna be something I can really connect with, and then we basically gloss over a lot of different parts of Edinburgh. It's described as incredibly seedy in the downtown in a lot of ways that contemporary Edinburgh is just not that way anymore, and I can tell you that because I was just there this year. So this revolves around Braden and a woman named Samantha, who's the head of a charitable cause and, you know, has really fought her way into having that seat at the table on being part of what is essentially a nonprofit board. And she's got a chip on her shoulder because she's got this sister who is quite different. See all of my previous concerns with the last book. We're talking different in that same neurodivergent vein, I feel. She winds up roping Braden into being on the board with her because he's a doctor, and having a doctor on the board is a very big deal because there are orphans involved. It's a whole thing. And of course, eventually they come to fall in love with each other. And eventually, you know, all of these books end with the same idea of there is a moment where somebody might be murdered and it is one of the two of them, and the other one has to rush in and save the other. And it bounces back and forth who saves whom most of the time. And this book was no different. There was, you know, she's walking around wearing a mask and carrying a knife and her walking stick with a man with whom she communicates in sign language for protection. There's a lot of people getting stabbed in this book, and it's all taking place sort of around the holidays, which of course the Kendricks now celebrate because Donella has come into the family a few books before, and now they've got all these English women that have married some of the brothers, and over the time they've all gotten married off, and now they lo and behold celebrate Christmas. So it's the Highlander's Holiday Wife. So at this point I'm invested in these books here in April, just because I need to know how this series ends. I get it, there's a formula, they're all gonna follow the formula, and this book met my expectations in that regard. I do think it's interesting though in this book the use of Angus. Angus is the grandfather, and like maybe you come to these books for whatever it is, whatever reason you do, but you stay for Angus MacDonald, who is the cranky old grandfather who adores babies and basically goes around telling every one of the brothers, oh, you've always been my favorite. And that's his lane, and he provides unrealistic advice and generally wants to run people through with a sword when they say anything bad about his clan. And so he pops up in this book on occasion. It's so interesting to me what the conceit is in each of these that is going to get him to be part of the main character's life, because he spends all of his time saying, oh, I'm your favorite and I need to be here for you, and you don't remember but when you were a boy. And so he, of course, does that in this book too. Angus MacDonald has some of the funniest funniest dialogue in all of this. He is unafraid to just let someone know what he feels and to dress in old-timey clothes that are moth-eaten and torn, but with the tartan of his clan. Following this, I took a pause to listen to Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This book I gave 4 stars to because it was very well done. It was absolutely infuriating. I think if you see any reviews of this book, you will probably notice that a lot of people really enjoy the experience of hating this main character. And the main character is someone who is a young white woman who doesn't come from very much in her background, and she's fresh out of a master's degree, I think, writing program, and she's just published her first book and it's not doing very well, and her agent is really, you know, on her about, you got to give me something else, you got to give me something else, what are we going to do with your career, we haven't sold anything in a while. And then one of her perhaps best frenemies from her writing program dies, and she says, well, here's this unfinished story that this person that I've always kind of hated was working on. Nobody else knows it exists. She looks at that opportunity and says, maybe this could solve my problem. And along the way, there are a lot of questions in this book around authorship and identity and how much you can lie and still get away with it in the publishing industry. And I found this book to be so frustrating, and also the type of work that is so incredibly needed just to expose what the publishing industry is up to, how authors and their manuscripts get marketed, how things get selected. I don't want to say there are quotas, but it kind of makes it seem like there are quotas for different types of books, for different types of authors, for different authors of different identities, how many can reasonably be put into an average season. It does not paint the publishing industry in the best light. The reason I took a star off this book's review was because of the ending. I absolutely knew who the main challenge to the main character's success was, and the way that this person chose to confront the main character about the issue, I thought was a big departure from the sort of thoughtfulness of the rest of the book. What happened seemed wildly rash, and I can certainly understand how someone would be driven to take those type of actions. But for the reality that had been built up, the sense of reality that had been built up by the author for the majority of the book, by the time this confrontation happened, it was a stark moment of like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm reading a book. This is a book. This is fiction. And that's the note that the book ended on. So that took a star off for me, although I did really enjoy this book. It was incredibly frustrating. If you consider yourself someone who is committed to DEIA work, and you want to go ahead and read this and haven't already, I strongly feel that you will be irritated and frustrated by the entire plotline the whole time. And then, my friends, I took a turn back to my list of holds to The House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, which is book 2 in the Crescent City series. And I'm here to tell you that having read that book in May, and right now, it being October, I have no recollection of what the plot was about. I'm pretty sure that we got more deeply invested in these people that live in water, and that dude, whatever his name is, and another one of these wolf-shifting people in this plot. I'm operating on the assumption that everyone knows the plot of Crescent City, and at this point, I can't even explain what it is. But those two dudes make a lot of poor choices, and it just continues throughout the book. I don't know. I have no recollection of what happens in this book, other than that it sets you up for book 3. This middle section, really, I don't think revealed anything significant, or I probably would have remembered it. But it set up book 3. And this could have been a duology, maybe. I don't even know. Someone's going to come after me for saying that, but maybe this could have been a duology. I only read this series because I wanted to see where it intersected with ACOTAR. Pushed through it. It was a lot of pages. It was a lot of pages. Which is perhaps why I was so excited when this next book, The Highlanders' Kilted Bride, the very last in the Clan Kendrick series by Vanessa Kelly, came off of my holds list. This book was one of only a couple in this series that I read a physical copy of, and this takes place with Cade, who is like the youngest character of all these brothers. He was sickly as a child. So much is made across the whole series about him being sickly and everyone looking out for him and looking after him and thinking that he's going to relapse into being sick again, right? Because it's like 1815. And so he now is a very famous concert pianist, and he is for some reason home, and he goes up to this castle to visit these people that he must have known when he was a child, one of whom is this girl who likes to go by Charlie because she hates her name Charlotte, and she is a very, very stereotypical version of the tomboy who doesn't want to wear female lady-like attire. She doesn't want to wear a dress. She wants to wear her kilt and run around on horses and climb trees and all of that good stuff. And so the two of them could not be more different, but they do remember being friends with each other when they were children. So we have that going on. This is one of those, oh yes, you know me and you saw me as a youth when I was 12, and then we haven't seen each other in some number of years, and now here I am, I'm back, and you know, what else could happen? But this book has a weird twist in that some other people eventually show up and also want to marry this girl, even though she makes it very clear to her father that she doesn't want to marry anyone. We have another very condescending father figure here in these books who says, guess what, it doesn't matter to me, you're going to marry one of these dudes. And then he takes it a step further, and when something gets lost in the house, he offers a contest to all of the gentlemen, and he says, if you can find this thing that's been lost, you can marry my daughter. Which isn't it's not a great look. Looking back, it's not a great look. Probably wasn't a great look then, and she certainly didn't think it was a great look then. And that's how the rest of the story progresses, with them having to fight it out in this contest. And one of the men who is in the contest is absolutely despicable. And believe it or not, even though the majority of this book takes place on one property, lo and behold, somehow someone almost gets murdered. And what happens? The other one has to save them, because we can't deviate from a solid framework across any of these books. But my delight with this series was, as with them all, there is always a happy ending. Everyone gets who and what they want in the end, and they all come away pleased with some more absolutely excellent dialogue from Angus MacDonald, aka Granda. And looking back across the series, I would like to actually do a series review of all of these. I think it would be hysterical to just go through them again and be extremely picky. But the most hysterical thing about all of these books is that somehow they don't take place over a ton of years, but Angus hasn't died. This man who consistently across all of these is just like getting older, and they talk about how old he is and how wild his like Bernie Sanders level gray hair is. The man makes trips to Canada on a boat and back, which takes ages. He's running all around, pulling out swords and guns and getting in there and wanting to kill people. Makes it all the way through. Solid. Solid work, Vanessa Kelly. Way to make things end well for your readers and for your characters. And it's really good that I ended that book on a high note, because then came Joan by Catherine J. Chen. This is a novel about Joan of Arc. And you can read what I have to say on Goodreads, because it's far more succinct and it is far more pithy and far more incisive than what I'm about to say now. But here's the thing. It's my understanding that there are some things that we know to be true because we have historical evidence about Joan of Arc. Much has been said about this book, especially on the jacket, about how well researched it is. Wildly well researched. But then taking those true pieces and going a hard left with them into things that were absolutely never even possibly could have been close to the truth. I don't know, man. Is it actually a book about Joan of Arc? Is it actually a novel about Joan of Arc, or somebody else? Or a Joan of Arc-like character, if you make up the majority of the stuff that happens? I don't know. I don't know. And then on top of it, the first third, where we learn about Joan as a child, that writing, totally great. The end, also pretty good. The middle, we're just going around from town to town, cutting down British soldiers, winning wars, winning battles. I don't know, it reminded me of all the camping in Deathly Hallows, which was not really a look that I wanted to go back to, especially when I wasn't thinking that this is really what happened in France. So this book didn't work for me. We read this for the library book club that I run, and nobody else really had positive feelings about it. And I was really expecting to be blown away by this deep literary fiction, you know, that put a feminist point of view on Joan of Arc and really told it from, like, what it means to be a woman in this time period. And I guess in a way she did, but it also just, I don't think it was about Joan of Arc in the end. I think enough was changed based on what we know to be true about Joan of Arc that it wasn't Joan, but who's to say? It's not exactly like journalism and documentation were a hot commodity back then. So if you've read that book, please let me know what you think in the comments, because I don't know how to feel. Pretty much right now I'm not feeling great about it. And then came The House of Flame and Shadow, Book 3 in Crescent City, and boy was I delighted to finally get to the end of this book. It was filled with more bad decisions from the merman and the wolf shifter, whose names I don't remember at this point, but they were filled with tons of bad decisions on their part. Then we had a surprise reveal of somebody who turned out to be really important, and pretty much the whole book hinged on their actions in making everything work. And there was a lot of will they, won't they between that person and another character, and eventually their choice made a lot of other people mad. There was a lot of drama going on in this book, and we finally got the true convergence with ACOTAR in the end, which is what I was here for. Fascinating. Also, some of it, there was a lot of walking around in caves, which reminded me once again of all the camping in Deathly Hallows. We as a society, we gotta get authors to figure out how to talk about these repeat boring experiences in a way that is much more engaging. Because if I have to keep remembering, like, moving from site to site and setting up the spells around the tent, and then the snatchers come all the time, if I gotta keep remembering that in book after book where something is just plodding along from place to place, I don't know. I'm gonna have to start DNFing a lot more things. At the end of this, I guess I was pretty satisfied with the way that this series concluded. I would have liked to see, honestly, a little bit more crossover with the other world, and I just think that those characters could have been a lot less angry with Bryce. Now, don't get me wrong. Someone shows up here and is like, hey, I'm here to save you. We're kind of related. Also, I might be your queen. I get it. I get it that that's a lot. But the characters that were chosen to interact with Bryce and everyone could not have been more coiled to attack if you had paid them. I just think there was a moment where we all could have come to this understanding that, like, okay, we don't trust each other, but we're going to trust each other for now. And there were moments of that, there were flashes of that, but at the very end, there just could have been an undercurrent of kindness, and it would have added a whole elevation to this book in a way that the lack of it did not. And by the time I was done here, I was delighted to be through with these, because I think that my lane is just, you know, it's ACOTAR, and I read that first, and I'm here with it, and I was really only in this to see where this was going to meet it up. And that's where we're at. I don't think I was ever in a situation where I was going to like this, especially because this is one of those, like, magic meets technology situations. That's not for me. It's not for me. I think it's either one or the other. It doesn't work well in my head. It's a very unpopular opinion, so I'm just gonna leave that there. Now, we don't have time to really deeply get into these last two, which are the Highlander Who Protected Me and the Highlanders Christmas Bride. And if you're playing along at home, yes indeed, these are 1 and 2 in the Clan Kendrick series by Vanessa Kelly, and I'll tell you why I picked them back up. A, because they are very easy to get on Kindle. No one is ever looking for them. Is that a mistake? Absolutely. More people should read this series, especially if historical romance like Regency or romance is your genre. Go for it, man. These are really, really well done, despite being impressively formulaic. But by the time I finished the end of this series, there were so many different allusions to brothers and the rationale for their actions that had been taken because they had married these wives, and the way that the wives and the families, that, like, the smaller immediate families and the larger clan family, were interacting with each other. I couldn't even remember the original plot of their stories to understand why they were making these new choices later on in the series. So I said to myself, you know what, it's easy enough to do. I'll just go back and read the first two and figure out what the heck even happened with Royal and Ainsley. Couldn't remember. Did not remember how that started out. Was a bit of a shock when I did go back and reread it because it's not light. That content is not light, not for the faint of heart. Then in the Highlanders Christmas Bride, we get to Logan and Donella, which was actually where I began this series overall. And Logan comes up in these books all the time. He's like the tallest and the brawniest and the meanest and the one who's always going to be there to like save your butt or something. And yet he's tempered by this woman, and I could not remember anything about Donella except that she used to be a nun. That's all. That's all I remembered. And she, you know, shows up for a hot second and, you know, calms the children, and they whisk them away to go and decorate for Christmas or something. And then there's this other child that Logan has had, and he shows up, and I just couldn't remember anybody's connection. So I went back and read these two. It was fine. And I finished up the quarter with two really fun, thoughtful, sweet books, including The Girl Who Kept the Castle by Ryden Groudon, which I did a review on. Again, thank you to the author here for sending me an advanced copy of this book via NetGalley. This was really, really sweet. It was billed as Howl's Moving Castle meets Nevermore, which was 100% on point. I really enjoyed it. It was sweet and thoughtful. Loved Wizard West. Thought he really stole the show. And if you want to know more about it, I would check out that video because I go into some serious detail. But out the gate, if Howl's Moving Castle meets Nevermore is something you're interested in, absolutely read this book. And I ended the quarter with The Twilight Garden by Sarah Nisha Adams. This was a book club pick for June, and it was a really thoughtful story about these neighbors who live next to each other in the outskirts of London, and they share a common back garden. And at one point they both start to get post through their post boxes from somebody who knows that back in the day, like 20 or 30 years ago, the garden used to be like a thriving big community garden that all these people would come out and participate and plant in, and it was this big group of friends and neighbors who looked out for each other and cared for each other, and there was food, and it wasn't a community garden and like, you know, you have this plot that you maintain. It was these people lived here and they shared the garden with their friends, and people would just show up and look after it, and they'd all have scones and tea together. It was a really like a big bonding place for this wide cast group of friends and community. So they get these letters and pictures and things in the post, and both of them are like, who is sending this stuff to me? Meanwhile, the two neighbors who share the garden cannot stand each other, are totally different people, hate each other, and that was part of the story that I actually really wish had been more developed because, okay, fine, I get that they don't like each other. The actions that they took very much demonstrated to me that they didn't like each other and that they were annoyed. But when you're gonna put warring neighbors on the front, I'm expecting like the actions against each other to be a lot more insane. And mostly it was just them doing small things to irritate each other and get under each other's skin. By the end, were they doing that anymore? You'll have to read the book to find out. But it was a really thoughtful portrait of a community and both of these individuals growing as people, along with growing their garden in and around each other's lives, and eventually taking these two disparate folks' existences and merging them together because of this common thing, which is their back garden, and making something really nice for people that they have never previously met. And very belatedly, we've now together made it through all of the books that I read in quarter 2, which seems like forever ago. So stay tuned. Quarter 3 coming soon. We're in quarter 4 now, so not long until the end of the year. If you've read any of the books that I've talked about, I invite you to please go ahead and leave a comment. I would love to hear more about what your thoughts were on any of these. As always, if you want to find anything out about us, it's probably in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and we will see you very soon.